Stop moving it. If you're going to put it where it's going to be and leave it.
Right there.
Are you sure? You going to change it again?
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good.
Go ahead and get started. So all right. Awesome. Okay, so we're recording. So Amanda, thank you so much for being on the show. This is actually the first interview that I've recorded for this upcoming podcast, although I've got over 40 people lined up who want to be on as marketing experts. But I thought that it would be wonderful to talk with you about your experience as a designer for 20 years. So let's go ahead and dive in.
Sure, let's do it. Hey, everyone.
Thank you so much for being on the show. I really appreciate you being here.
Absolutely.
Cool. All right. So tell me a little bit about how you got started in your business. I know that you said that it was in the late 90s, so let's talk about that. How did you get started?
Already starting off by dating me.
It's all good. It's all good. It's experience. It's good stuff.
Yeah, actually, it's a pretty funny story. I was pre-med. I was going to school to be a doctor, and I had just graduated with my biology degree, and I was on my way. I had been accepted to med school in Southern California, and I met a boy and blew off med school and ended up moving to Northern California. And lo and behold, I applied to UC Davis and a couple of other schools, and I couldn't get in. And so I had the wherewithal to kind of look at the bigger picture, and I kind of stepped back and I was like, well, this is interesting. I wonder why, like I'm hitting roadblocks now. And so
I don't think that a lot of people at that age would be able to have that much perspective on it. I think that they'd probably feel, I'm sure you felt like obviously a little bit of disappointment.
I think I did, but I really feel like I was going into the medical field because my mom is an ER nurse, and my whole life growing up, I just heard this idea that, people are always going to be sick. People are always going to be ill. And, if you go into medicine, then you're always going to have a job. It's job security.
Right.
So I think that, and I graduated high school at 17, and so I was still pretty impressionable, and I was like, sure, okay, let's be a doctor. And I don't think that I really thought it through. And then I realized when I wasn't able to, and I found out later that UC Davis had, well, at the time, they had this underlying rule, so to speak, that anybody under the age of 25 they wouldn't allow in because they didn't feel that they had the emotional maturity to go through med school. And now that I'm older, I agree with that 100%. And I understand that decision. But at any rate, my then husband and I, we had purchased a home, and it was the classic story. We bought the worst house in the best neighborhood and took it back to the studs, and we completely remodeled it, took it back to the studs, and replenished this beautiful home. And at this time I had no idea what I was doing. Like, I wasn't in the field, I didn't know anything. And the house was gorgeous. We had all these beautiful chandeliers and carpet and wood floors, and I had this 1,000 square foot kitchen. Wow. I'm 23 years old, and I've got granite countertops, and like at the time, nobody had granite countertops. Like, it was such a big deal. Again, dating myself. But I realized that even though we had completely made this home beautiful and we had all these beautiful things, I wasn't happy. It just did not feel right to me. Like, I could feel it in my gut that something was off, and I couldn't quite place it, and I didn't know what it was. And so I went down to Borders bookstore, again, dating myself.
But Borders has been, they were around recently, so not that long ago.
Not too long ago, but so I'm standing in front of like what seemed like 6,000 interior decorating book. And I'm like, if I can just make it more pretty, if I can just make the house prettier, it won't feel bad. Because I thought, who the hell am I to sit here and look at this house and be selfish enough to say, I know I've done all these beautiful things, but I'm still not happy. Like, I felt so entitled, it just did not sit right with me. And I had The most surreal, amazing experience happened that completely changed the trajectory of my life. And I now know that, that's why that happened. I was standing in Borders bookstore, and a woman by the name of Marlene walked up to me and said, "Darling, you don't need those books. You need these books." And I just saw this ominous F word that I couldn't pronounce, and it soon became my favorite F word, which was feng shui. And so I dropped out of med school. My mother is okay. And
who was this woman, Marlene? Or, do you still know her, or is she still in your life?
I knew her for a while. She has since passed away, but she actually taught, she had a PhD in metaphysics, and she taught at the local college. And she saw me standing in the Borders bookstore, and she was also an intuitive. And when she told me about this ominous F word, she said, things aren't going right for you because you can't get to your front door. And I was like, excuse me? And we couldn't. The entire front of our house had been ripped off for over a year because we were remodeling. We had done the interior, but we were still doing things on the exterior. And so now, 20 years later, I know that how important the front door is and what that means to your energy on your home. But at the time, I didn't know that, and I couldn't get into my front door. It was completely boarded up. There was no stairs to it. And so we had been using the back door for over a year. And so we had completely shut off all of our opportunities in life and had a whole bunch of health issues. And yeah, Marlene was in my life for about 5 or 6 years after that, and then she ended up getting ovarian cancer and passed away. But she changed everything. I mean, she was the reason, and and it was so weird because as soon as I had that experience, I applied to one of the most prestigious schools in Northern California and thought, they're not going to accept me. I have, a bachelor's degree in biology, and I'm pre-med, like they're not going to want me. And I got accepted, and lo and behold, my space planning instructor, Marcy, was a feng shui grandmaster. So it was...
No way. Oh, wow.
Yeah. So like all of these things were lining up. And again, I had the wherewithal to have a bigger picture of, okay, this is my path. This is what I'm supposed to be doing.
Oh my gosh. I love that story. I love how everything just fell into place and guided you.
Without a doubt.
Do you think... I hadn't planned to ask you about this, but just from kind of like a fate and attraction perspective, do you think that you got that because you were open to receiving it, or how do you think all that happened?
Without a doubt, I was open to receive it. I didn't know at the time. I'm also an empath. I'm very open to energy. I am claircognizant, so I know things without knowing why I know things. Didn't know any of this at the time. And I had a lot of weird things that were going on. Like I was having dreams that I would have and they would come true, or I would have just things that in my head that I knew, like I would know that a person was dealing with something, or that they would be calling me soon, or just weird things, and it would happen. And so I think I just had a higher knowledge that at this point, I just needed to surrender. I think I had been trying so hard to make med school work, and I was too busy trying to please someone else. And I don't even know who that was, because my mother really didn't give a shit. She just wanted me to be happy. And I think I put a lot of pressure on myself, and I really felt like I had to make something of myself, and I needed to be successful. And, I wanted to be able to say that I was a doctor because I wanted people to take me seriously. But I had to back up and kind of look at that and say, well, why? Why does that matter? Why is that important to me? And I realized that the root of it was, I didn't grow up with my dad. My parents had divorced at an early age. And when I finally got clear about what it was, I thought that if I became a doctor, that my dad would like me. Right? Stupid, but I think a lot of kids can resonate with that.
Oh, absolutely.
So I realized that when this was my passion, and when Marlene had pointed me to those books in Borders, I bought like 25 of them. I spent like $500 on feng shui books, and like I was just devouring them because it's like the angels were singing and like everything started making sense. And I realized that I had jumped the gun. I had made all of my house pretty and I had done all the beautiful things that I still love, but I didn't get the energy right first, which is now our process. You know, if you work with us, you have to work on this energy aspect before we even get into the interior design, because I want to make sure that it feels good. And so having experienced that, I now know what it's like if it's off.
Right,
so,
right.
you know.
Now, from a marketer's perspective, I think that having and we talked a little bit about this, we talked a few weeks ago for everybody that's listening. I think that from a marketer's perspective, having that additional element of feng shui is a huge value add for an interior design practice. But one of the things that we talked about also was that it's important if you do decide to have some sort of value add, and in addition to, like you said, making things pretty or designing things well, that it's really authentic to who you are, right?
Without a doubt. I mean, if you are not, this business is really hard. And I think a lot of people think that, you know, we just pick out colors all day and pull fabrics and paint colors and it's very lovely. And, you know, it's about 10% creative and about 90% hardcore business and management. And I think a lot of people get into it without that realization and they're quickly disappointed. And so burnout is common. Yeah. In my graduating class, there was about 30 of us, and there's only 3 of us that are still practicing today. So if you really want and love what interior design is all about, you really have to have a passion for it, and you have to bring your authentic self to it, because if your tribe and the people that you're attracting through your marketing and all the things that you're doing on social media aren't real, it's not going to resonate to you, and you're going to hit that burnout.
So you said in your experience, 10% is the designing part and the rest of it is business. How much of that 90% would you say is marketing?
Oh, I mean, I think they go hand in hand, to be honest. You can't, I mean, in this day and age, you know, if you had asked me that same question 10 years ago, I would have said, oh, it's probably like 40%, 30%. But I think I'm always selling. You know, like I am on the phone with a vendor and I'm telling them what I'm doing. In fact, my girls are so trained. We've been running around crazy, you know, the last 2 weeks.
Your girls, like your employees, yourself?
Yeah, I call them my girls. We've been running around like crazy all over town because we're trying to get everything ready for the holiday, right? And so Deborah is over at one of our local linen places, and the gal who owns the linen store, actually, she and Deborah went to school together. And so Deborah was on. She's like, well, you know, we need to maybe talk about putting together a class. You know, Amanda's all about this energy aspect, and, you know, it would be great to be able to educate your designers. I mean, she is always wheeling and dealing, and so are we. So, you know, and like we did 2 major installs last week. And so as vendors are coming and going, like the Sonos guy that does TV, you know, we're telling him, you know, there's this energy aspect, and this is what we do when we do design that's energy aligned. And, you know, we had to place the television here, and we needed the subwoofer here, and we had to do it this way. And so he was like, oh my God, this is amazing. We're like, here's our card. So like, I don't think you can really extract one without the other, because in this day and age, with all of this connectivity that we now have, it's like if you turn it off. And in the interior design business, you have to be so careful, because if you get so focused on your current jobs and your current work and you're not doing that other aspect, then the pipeline gets empty very quickly. You're churning and burning. You have to be.
Now, I noticed that you said, I think you said I'm always selling, or you have to always be selling. And I find it interesting that you use that word. I find it admirable that you use that word. I feel like a lot of people, just in the creative industry in general, and also in my experience networking, it's mid-November when we record this. So for about the last month, maybe 6 weeks, I've been networking with interior designers. And I think that creatives and interior designers are definitely afraid of or averse to the idea of, quote, selling, that word. Tell me more about how you feel about it. Obviously, you have positive feelings, but what advice would you have for people who are either averse to it, or they feel icky about it, or tell me about that?
It's simply a word. And so You know, if you're having an adverse reaction to it, it's like, why? That to me would be a root of an experience that you've had with a car salesman, the insurance guy. There's something there that's getting you tripped up on it, because what I have found is that, especially in the interior design trade, I mean, a lot of us are introverts. I'm definitely an introvert. You know, I'm good in front of people, but I definitely prefer not to be around people. But I feel that the interior designer is built for being social. So if you're networking, if you're doing show houses, if you're talking with your trades and your vendors, you're selling. So if that's not the word that you don't want to use networking, use, you know, enlightening the people around you. Whatever the term is that makes you feel comfy, cozy, it's selling. That's what it is.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Okay, so I want to ask you some marketing questions, but quick, I want to get a handle on what your business looks like now. So tell me a little bit about the types of clients that you're working with, how many clients you're working with in a given year. Yeah, tell me all about like what you're doing right now so people know.
Well, and you and I talked about this a little bit the other day, but I feel like we're really in a sweet spot. And, you know, we have really built this business around what we wanted it to look like, feel like, operate like, and it took us years to get here. I mean, we have been finessing, and, you know, we still pivot. You know, things are moving so quickly in this day and age. It's like you can't create something and then you're done.
Right.
You know, you always have to mold it and manipulate it, especially with how quickly social media and online stuff is functioning. But in a typical year, we probably don't work with more than 5 clients. We have found that is our sweet spot, especially if it's a larger home, or, you know, most of the average homes that we do are anywhere from 4,000 to 7,000 square feet. I really don't like taking on much bigger than that. I know some designers are like, oh, how could you? But, you know, we have found that, you know, that for us is what works for us, especially from an energy aspect. You know, like the other day I did a project where a home was on 5 acres. Well, I'm a conduit for that. My energy system, my instrument, my body has to be able to manage and maintain and work and transmute energy of 5 acres. So it's no different from that than a house. And so when I do houses that are 10 to 20,000 square feet, I mean, it just exhausts the hell out of me. I can't do it. So we typically do about 5 big projects a year. We'll do a couple of small things in there. I usually just kind of overlook and oversee the smaller stuff, and somebody else does that for me. And then, what was the other question? I can't remember.
Oh, I just wanted to, so how many clients are you working with? Like, what is your business looks like now? I mean, you've been doing this for 20 years, so you're at a stage where taking, you know, 5 clients a month, larger houses. Let me ask you, do you do flat fee? Are you team flat fee, or do you bill by hourly? How does that work for you?
I am of the hybrid model. So we have not had the best success with a flat fee. I love the idea of it, and I love the concept of it. I actually, if you are a new interior designer that's just starting out and you're trying to find a coach, I would recommend Gail Doby. Many of the veterans out there like myself have worked with her. She's a huge candidate, for flat-based fees. Yeah. And I have found that what works better for us, which this is the Julia Malloy system, is that we charge a flat fee for the vision of the space. So, you know, if you want my ideas and want to know what the hell it is that I'm doing, which I just put up a great video on Facebook yesterday. Sorry, my cat wants in my office.
It's all good.
We put together a really great video yesterday that showed our process of the before picture of the space, the vision and the renderings, and then the after. So it kind of showed it, you know, it was 6 months in the making, but it showed the process. So, but if you just want that creative part, that is a flat fee. And we love that because we can put that together and send them off with it. And they're like avid DIYers. They can be like, great, you know, and then go and try and do it themselves. The middle part.
So let me ask you a quick, you're capturing people who don't need you to actually come in and do the implementation and the execution. Oh, that's
They can. We basically have a 3-step process. So they can, if they want to stop at step 1, they can, which is just the overall vision.
Right.
The middle is where we charge by the hour, because that's where things get really messy when you're getting into the procurement and the management of everything,
Right.
dealing with subs and vendors and all of that. And then the end is a flat fee. So I got that from Julia Malloy, and I feel like that has been the best. We have tried it all. We've tried by the square foot. We've tried the full flat fee. We've tried it all. And this has been what has been the most successful for us and actually profitable. You know,
Fantastic.
you have to, I think designers, when they're first coming out, they forget that this is a for-profit business. And, you know, they focus so much on getting the space pretty so that they can get the right photographs and sell themselves. And they forget, oh yeah, I'm supposed to be making money too. So I think that's a really important aspect, because Gail was the one that brought it to my attention that the average interior designer makes less than $25,000 a year.
Oh my God.
So
Before expenses? Or are we talking about after everything?
that's net. So, you know, and that's kind of heartbreaking to, you know,
Yeah.
when you think about how hard an interior designer works, you know, and actually Deborah, my project manager who works for me, was a previous client. She and I worked together over a decade ago on her house, and then she came and started working with me in 2008. And when she started working with me, she was like, oh my God, I had no idea what it takes to be you. Like, she just had no idea. She's like, you order a dining chair and there's like 37 pieces of paper and 5 vendors. I'm like, yep, welcome to our world. So it's eye-opening for sure.
Yeah. Now, you also have a podcast. So how did you start podcasting, and what has it done for your business?
I started my podcast in 2011. I was doing it way before all the cool kids were. I actually had been listening to a lot of woo-woo kind of podcast. My favorite was Kelly Howell. She's kind of a metaphysical spiritual teacher, and she would have like just these crazy guests on her show, everything from psychics to energy healers to remote viewing and just crazy stuff. And I thought, you know what, I'm gonna do this. And I had no idea. Oh my God, I had no idea. And it was so like wonky. Like, I was using like 6 pieces of software that were like, you know, it was all digital, but it was like digitally duct taped together, and like there would be feedback in my ear, and it was so wonky. But I started the podcast because I wanted a platform so that I could geek out and reach out to people that I admired and really liked. And I wanted to use it as a, hey, I got a podcast, you want to come on? Like, I didn't do it as a marketing tactic, and I still really don't. But like, it started because of that. I wanted to be able to reach out to people that I really, really admired. And Barbara Viteri was one of them. She's actually in the design world, and she's not an interior designer, but she's a project manager, and she teaches other interior designers how to put their systems together. And she was somebody that I really admired, and she kept reaching out to me on Facebook, wanting to know if I wanted to use her system. And when I realized what it was that she was doing and how she could advance this industry, I was like, oh my God, I need you to come onto my podcast. And so she's been on a couple of times now, and she's one of my best interviewers because we just have so much fun. But, you know, it was a great opportunity for me to carve out an hour with her to have that interview where I would have normally had. Like, most people will not get on the phone with you and just chit chat with you for an hour, but for a podcast, they'll do anything.
Exactly. So you haven't really used it necessarily as marketing, but it's allowed you to connect and it's allowed you to connect, but also obtain information.
Oh, and some of my dearest, dearest friends that I'm still in contact with today. One of my dear friends, Chris Alexandria, I've had her on the podcast twice. She is actually also an intuitive, and she is an angelic coach. And so yeah, and I met her back in 2011. So like, I have developed a ton of really great friendships on it. And I just recently started working with a PR firm in New York. And so they have kind of overhauled the podcast, and now we're starting to use it more as a teaching platform to educate people a little bit more about feng shui. So these are classes that I've been teaching locally, and they were like, these are amazing classes. but they're only available to Nashvillians. So let's put it on your podcast so that like the world, and I was like, that's a great idea. So I've been using it for that as well. So sprinkling that in.
Tell me about that choice to reach out and work with a PR firm. What prompted that, and what have you gotten from it so far?
Well, I'm working with a business coach, and she was actually the one that recommended that I work with a PR firm. She asked us when we first started working with her, like, what are your goals? And everybody that works for me, we all kind of have this humanitarian heart, and we're trying to give back in big ways. And how can we really serve? And, you know, we're at that stage in our life now where it's no longer about kicking ass and taking names and making, you know, more money. It's like, how can we best serve, you know, the planet and best serve and give back? And so when we were talking to Kendrick about this, we were trying to look at the bigger picture and what our purpose is. And she said, well, you're never going to be able to do that if you just stay local. And so we've got clients that we have, you know, all over the US, but it's still small. And so she put me in contact with this PR firm and was like, they're going to be able to get your message out there. And they're the ones that are going to be able to, you know, take you from this to this so that your message and that's really what we're trying to get to. We're trying to, like, I've been so one-on-one and changing people's lives one-on-one, and we're trying to get it to where we can do it, you know, on a grander scale. Because a lot of people, if somebody comes to me and wants feng shui, but they don't want the interior design, that is a service that we offer. But what we have found is that a lot of people that want feng shui can't necessarily afford it. Like a single mom with 3 kids who really needs it and it can really benefit her. So, you know, we've been trying to figure out a way to where we can really expand that business, but, like, you know, not starve. So they have been able to help us put all that together.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Now, you mentioned something that I want to talk about just a sec. You said that you were changing people's lives, and I think that that's an important thing for interior designers to remember, because I think that we all get into whatever business that we're in. I think a lot of us who are in a service business, whatever service it is, are in it to help other people. And so how do I tee up this question? How do interior designers keep this top of mind? Because here's why I'm asking. Because when you are certain that you're changing someone's life with your work, you're not afraid to charge what you feel is the appropriate value. You're not afraid to market for it. You're not afraid to sell for it. So how do creatives and how do interior designers keep this top of mind, that they're actually changing people's lives with their work?
Well, this comes back to being authentic. You know, if you really know who you are, then you're passionate. And if you're passionate about what you're doing, you're sharing with the world. And so from an energy standpoint, when you love what you're doing, you're broadcasting that. And so people who broadcast at that same frequency, you're attracting that back to you. So if you're not authentic and you're not loving what you're doing, then you're going to attract people that don't love what you do either. And so you're going to get in that cycle of, I always get people who can't afford me. I always get people who don't want to pay me. And it's because you just get in this cycle. So
everybody listen up. If you're getting clients like that, it's because you've got some energy misalignment happening.
Without a doubt. And so you have to, and I think we're really starting to come into this age, you know, we've been in this very deep-rooted patriarchal system for millennia. And the divine feminine is finally starting to come through. That's what started to happen in 2012. And so it's really starting to emerge. And, you know, we've been really, and you can see a lot of it with all of these men in Hollywood and stuff that are starting to come out with secrets. It's no accident.
It's been amazing. Watching all of this unfold has been amazing to watch. It's crazy.
It's no accident. And it's this paradigm that we're now in. It's from an energy standpoint where women have really been suppressed and controlled with government, religion, politics, but it's all been from this hierarchy of the patriarchal system. And so now it's starting to flip. And so we've been really ingrained with push through, power through, do whatever it takes, think like a man, work like a man, and work 3 times harder than a man to prove yours. It's just all of this, you know, malarkey. So what's happening is it's now this shift that's coming in where we're going to really start approaching things with our core feelings. Like, well, what do we really want to do? What really makes us feel good? What is it that's going to really make my heart sing? Because when you get in that space, then you can really help the world, change the world, and help other people. And then you really enjoy it and you want to do more of it. And then you just get in that, you know, that sweet spot.
Right. I love it. So I want to ask you about your advice for designers in a minute, but I want to go back to this talk that we were having about taking your business national or even global with products, with courses. You have started to venture into digital products. I think we talked about. Tell me what's going on there.
We have tons of content. We have tons of free ebooks. We've got a bunch of free video series that we do. Go to my YouTube channel. They're all there. A lot of them are on my website as well. And some of them are snippets on energy and feng shui. Some of them are a combination of both interior design and feng shui, and then other ones are just interior design. But to me, digital is where it's at. That's the direction that everything is going. And I feel like the more that, you know, I don't think that you should try to be all things to all people, but I do think that you should try to, especially interior designers, so many of them don't want to be on video. Some of them don't, you know, even want to be like out in social media. Some of them still haven't even gotten a blog and it's already on the way out. You know, blogging is, you know, I don't think it's going to go anywhere, but it definitely doesn't have the popularity that it did, say, even in 2010, 2013, you know, when the economy was pretty bad. So I think that you have to really look at what your brand is, what you're authentic about, what you're passionate about, and how you can take this amazing platform. I mean, you know, have people who are stars because of YouTube. You know, they have YouTube channels with 20 million people, and that's a business for them.
Yeah.
So, you know, how do you take this little interior design business and kind of branch it out to where you've got content on YouTube, content on Facebook, you're creating digital products, online courses. You know, we're working on trying to get our book authored or launched, and you know, we're also looking into doing a television show. So we're trying to broaden our horizons as best as we possibly can so that we're touching as many things as we can. And the good thing about when you do it this way and you're in all of these platforms is that, one, it gets you experience. You get more comfortable talking about what the hell it is you even do. Because you can't just say, I'm an interior designer. Well, who gives a shit? You know, like, everybody's an interior designer. You know, get you prepared and prepped for that conversation, your elevator pitch. But I think what it does is it sets you up as the expert. You know, it really helps you build your tribe. People want to see you. They want to hear you. They want to hear your cadence, how you carry yourself. And I think the more that you can get yourself out there and the more visibility you get, the easier it is for you to sell.
Yes, I've heard a lot of aversion to doing video as well, and I think that you hit the nail on the head when you said that people can see you, they can hear you, they can hear the cadence in your voice. I mean, think about the relationship that you're engaging when you solicit your services as an interior designer. I mean, think about the relationship that you're going to have with that person over the next several months. You're going to be very close with them, and so it's probably good that they understand who you are before they get into this arrangement.
And I think that what a lot of people don't realize too, and I've had clients tell me this, is that interior design it's a highfalutin thing. You know, to really do it right and to do it the way that it's supposed to be done, it takes money. So it's definitely an expenditure that people have to have expendable cash to be able to set aside 30, 40, 100 grand to, you know, redo their house. And so if you go to someone's website, especially an interior designer, it can be very intimidating. You know, it's all these fancy photos and very fancy words, and it feels kind of intimidating and highfalutin. And there are a lot of, you know, like, especially here in Nashville, I've got some really great clients that have a lot of money And, you know, they went to my stagnant website and it's got all these fancy photos with highfalutin stuff on it. And that doesn't appeal to them. And you're going to have that person anywhere and everywhere. Maybe not so much in California, but, you know, there's a level of fancy to an interior designer and what we do. And that can be intimidating to a lot of people. So that if they can go to a video, like that's the thing, people always watch my videos and they're like, you're such an idiot. I'm like, I know.
Why do they say you're an idiot? I don't think you're an idiot.
I'm just quirky.
You're like goofy?
Goofy. You know, like I'm goofy, and like I just did, I flew down to Baton Rouge to see Rachel Cannon, and we were talking about just Louisiana in general, and she was saying how we French everything up, and I was like, well, I like it because it's fancy. And so, but that's how I started out the video. And so, you know, if you went to my static website, saw all the fancy photos, saw my professional photos and all the fancy words, it looks kind of stuffy, you know? And so...
I'm glad that you said it, because I feel like there might be a little bit of a need for interior designers to warm themselves up. I feel like there's definitely a perception by the general public, whether they are interested in working with an interior designer or not, but I feel like there's a general perception with the public that interior designers are a little bit highfalutin, like you said, fancy, maybe a little bit distant, maybe even somewhat unapproachable.
Without a doubt.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that, and I don't think that the new wave of designers has that attitude. In fact, I find the new wave of designers, like Rachel Cannon and I talk about this all the time. I mean, I really love the direction that the industry is going, but like, I remember when I got into it in the 90s, like it was exceptionally cutthroat. Nobody shared sources. Everybody was very catty. And it was very snooty. It was very snobbish. And I thought, oh my God, I gave up medicine to do this. And like, I didn't resonate with that. I have a big heart, and I wanted to serve, and I wanted to help people, and I wanted them to feel good. And, you know, and back then I was really sloppy with feng shui. Like I didn't know exactly what I was doing and how to harbor in my energy. And I wasn't as sophisticated with it as I am now. And so, you know, I just wanted to make people feel good in the best possible way. And it's like, I feel like this new designer that's coming out, and the new designer is a lot more approachable. They're much more savvy with all the digital stuff. And hey, if I can do the digital shit, so can everybody else. Oh my God, I'm so adverse to all the technology. But, you know, I think that it helps your brand, because people have to see your personality. They have to see the type of person that you are. And, you know, the thing that I hear all the time is, oh my God, like they're going to see the wrinkles and I don't look good and I have bags. And it's like, you know what? If you look like shit on camera and you show up looking like $1 million, the real thing is better.
Yep. Yep. You know, I'm glad that you brought up the idea of, or just the concept of cutthroat and competition, and how it was in the market that you were working in the 90s when you started. And so I wanted to get your thoughts just from an energetic standpoint. Like, what is your mantra about competition with other designers in your space?
There is none.
Yeah.
You can't, if you are truly authentic to who you are, there's nobody like you. There's nobody that has your likes and dislikes. There's nobody. In fact, I want to do a show, and I'm trying to figure out how to do this. Carla Aston out of Houston and I, we were doing teleseminars a lot earlier this year, and she and I are really good friends. But what we did is we did a couple of different teleseminars on like how to style bookshelves or how to set up a living room. And what we would do is we would both get the same, say, bookshelf. And I loved it because she would approach it one way and I would come in and like, I'd be like, bam, here's all this color. And then she would come in with all these beautiful neutrals, two totally different things.
Yeah.
And so like, I was thinking about this last night. Like if I had like $1 million, what I would do is I would put together a show where someone like me could go around to these different places, and like I would love to design a space with Rachel, and I would love to design a space with Carla, because I think we all come to it with such a different aesthetic and a creative vision. And you cannot design like me, and I can't design like you. It doesn't matter if I work with you for a decade. I'm still going to come to it with my own ideals. So I think I think that that's a lack of confidence. When you're first getting into the business, it's insecurity. And two, I think that feeling like it's competition is a patriarchal way of thinking. And so, Kara Alwyn Layla, I never remember how to pronounce her name. She just wrote Girl Code, and she has this great mantra that she goes by, and I love it. Instead of being a look at me girl, be a come with me girl. That says it all. Like,
that's beautiful.
I feel like, and this is going to get wooey, but
get woo.
I feel like women in particular are quite catty with one another because of what we were put through due to the patriarchal system. Yes. During the Salem witch trials, we were burned at the stake, we were drowned, we were, horrible things were done to us, and we were forced to turn on one another. And these witch trials were global. It wasn't like it was just here, it was global. And so for women to experience that, I literally it's so bizarre. My coach is working with a medicine woman who lives in Sedona, Arizona, and she and I met in June, and we both knew that we knew each other. And she said, I didn't want to freak you out, but she said, we were in the Salem witch trials. And she said, you were burned at the stake and I was drowned. And I was like, oh my God, like I could feel that I knew her somehow, but I didn't know how. And she said, we were forced to turn on one another. And so she and I had this really deep conversation about how women are catty. They look at each other as competition, they're constantly fighting. And I think that, it's been the system that forced us to turn on one another, because prior to that, what did we have? We had tribes. We were communal. We were gatherers. We would be in these tribes together and gather, and women were always together. And it was our way of being brought up that we relied on one another and had each other's backs until the trials. And then when that occurred, everybody just kind of, turned their backs on everybody. But that's what the divine feminine is all about. This energy is starting to shift, and now we're all going to be come with me women, I
love that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think that needs to be everybody's mantra. You need to help each other out. You need to be kind to one another, and you need to be who you really are, because once you have that figured out, everything's going to fall into place with you, and then you'll be able to get into your sweet spot.
Yeah, and when you're not kind, it really doesn't feel very good at all. It might feel cathartic in short-term, cathartic to lash out or to bring somebody down, and I think that short-term it's okay, but long-term it just really does not feel good at all. It's
not your innate nature. We come from a loving place. We are here on earth. This is basically high school for us. We're here to learn and grow as souls. And so where we come from is all about love and kindness and giving back to one another. And then we come here and we're given this thing called an ego. And the ego is the one that overrides the system. But if you really sit in, what is it that you really want? And think about it. Like, I remember when I was coming up in interior design, I was surrounded by a bunch of catty bitches, they were just so mean and like they made me, not feel good about a lot of things. And so, I swore to myself that when I got to where they were, it was going to be different. And that's one of the things that I love about Rachel. She's the same way. She's absolutely like, this is what I do. This is how I do it. This is how I charge. And this is the group of women that's now starting to come up in the industry.
I agree with you. I do see this next generation of interior designers being much more collaborative and yeah, kind-hearted and open-minded about, okay, what can we use from different industries to help us get ahead? It doesn't necessarily all have to be just about what have interior designers always done? Like, what are other people doing? How can we adopt other revenue streams, other ways of marketing? There's all kinds of...
And there's strength in numbers. That's one of the reasons why I really wanted to team up with Carla is I thought, she has a completely different audience than me. I have a different audience from hers. And so, how can you collaborate with one another to build yourself up? It's marketing, it's selling, any way you want to, look at it. If you rely on your friends, you know, if you've got 5 friends, Carla has over 500,000 visitors to her blog a month.
Oh,
you know,
wow.
I only have 100,000. So it's like, but I know that my audience is different than hers. So if I get 3 other Carlas to collaborate with, that's over 1 million people that I'm getting in front of that might not necessarily know about me. But that's how you have to start thinking. You can't be closed-minded and closed off and like, oh, well, I see her as competition. It doesn't work that way.
I love it. I love it. I love it. This has been such a high vibe conversation. So I want to know from you, I want to know what advice you would have for designers today who either are just getting started or they're at a point in their business where they don't have enough clients and they feel like it's just a struggle.
Well, definitely, you know, never stop selling, you know. You know, and it's hard.
You brought up even selling with vendors. Like even that's an opportunity for you.
Without a doubt.
And I mean, also, I mean, let's also just bring everybody up to speed here. Marketing and selling is reminding people who you are, what you do, and who you do it for all the time, right?
Yeah, without a doubt. So, you know, I think back to when I was a young designer, I think the one thing that I just didn't have is a support system. You know, like I feel like designers today are at such an advantage. You know, you can touch so many things, and I didn't have YouTube, I didn't have Pinterest, I didn't have House, I didn't have, you know, I didn't have any of this stuff. I had to do it the old school way where I had to get in my car and go to the Marriott and literally network with people. And I hated that, you know. So take advantage of that, you know, get on YouTube, start a YouTube channel, you know, create a beautiful website that is inviting and shows your unique value. You know, what is your value proposition that you have that nobody else has? And don't think it can't be your personality. It absolutely can. You know, that's the best thing that you can bring to the table. So I think you just have to really get clear about who you are as a designer and what's important to you, what you really offer to your clients. And it doesn't necessarily have to be something different, but if you're bringing it in a unique way, it's different. And I think that, you know, in this day and age, I feel like in a lot of ways, design has been the value behind it has been slashed because of so much online merchants and, you know, the clients just being really, and that's not going to change, you know, clients just being so savvy with what things cost and whatnot. So how do you bring value in a different way that you can make up for that or still make money? Because you have to make money. And so I feel like so many designers, you know, they just have stars in their eyes and they're so excited to design and they want to create the beautiful portfolio, and that's important. But I would absolutely recommend going and working for somebody for a minimum of 2 years, because you're not going to have a clue what you're doing. You have to get systems in place. It's 90% business. So I would absolutely recommend hiring a coach. Gail Doby would be a great one to start with because she's an interior design coach. Work with a coach. That was probably the biggest mistake that I made, is that I thought I just spent $1 gazillion on design school. I don't need a coach. You need a coach because they are further along than you and they have connections that you don't. You want to, you know, have a bigger COI than you do, and your circle is like this big and theirs is this big.
Yeah, some of my best experiences, I mean, working for, when I think about the women that I worked for here in Orange County, those women were entrepreneurs. Like, yes, they were designers, but they were entrepreneurs. They were all about business, and
you have to
such
be
an amazing experience to, yeah, of course, we created great designs, absolutely. But to watch them work as entrepreneurs, that, looking back, this was an experience that was probably 10 years ago for me. But looking back, now that I see it, I was not an entrepreneur then. But seeing that experience is probably what influenced me most, was seeing them work as business people. Without
a doubt. You have to, because I think one of the hardest things about interior design is the fact that your clients will come to you and tell you how to do your business. They will come to you and tell you, well, I can't afford that, so you're going to do it cheaper. Okay, you know, or, well, I don't know what my budget is, so we're just going to do it for $10,000, you know, and it's like, it's a $30,000 job. So I think that, and I don't know any other industry where, you know, and maybe this does happen in insurance or something, I don't know, but, you know, when I opened my retail shop, it was right after the decline of the economy. It was right after the '08 crash. And I just remember like clients just really feeling like they had the upper hand and they could just walk all over us and, you know, say whatever they wanted to say. And, well, I know you're asking, or you're telling me it's going to be 10 grand, but we're only going to pay you 5. And when you're young and new and coming into the industry, you know, you don't have a business state of mind. You just have a, I want to please them. I want to make it pretty, and I want to please them, and I want to prove to them that I'm a good interior designer. And your best lifeline will be to work with a coach, work with a business coach. And I change every year. So like 1 year work with a business coach, then work with a sales coach, then work with a design coach, then work with a marketing coach. Like, you need to get diversified in the things that you're doing. And
so you constantly have that support.
Oh, without a doubt. I've had a business coach, or I've had a coach since 2009. So, you know, and you have to educate yourself, and you have to understand business, because people are going to walk all over you, or at least they're going to try. And you have to be strong and confident in your why. You have to say to them, I am a for-profit business. I am not a nonprofit, and I'm not doing this for charity. And I realize that or for fun, you know, I just fluff pillows. It's 90% business. So you have to have a head for business. And if you, and I don't, like, I have a bigger picture, like, go take your Myers-Briggs so that you know what your bigger picture is. My number 1 is visionary. And then my second one is futuristic. So I'm all about big picture. And so, like, all the little minutia, but I have people that do that. You know, like Deborah's my right-hand man. She's my project manager, and Elliot is my person that does all my marketing, and Denise is the one that does my books. So I have people that overcome my shortcomings, and you have to get to a point to where you can do that. When I didn't have my girls, I couldn't grow because I was so limited in how much work I could do, because I was doing all of their work too. So if you want to get to a point to where you're a profitable business and be big enough to where you can take, you know, 5 jobs, you need to be able to have people who can support you in those efforts. So you have to have a mind for business.
Yeah. So marketing advice, or just advice in general for designers who are coming up, who are either starting out or struggling, is 1, get a business coach. 2, get over your aversion to visibility. Get on YouTube, get on Facebook Live, do whatever you can to get in front of your people. And also find your unique selling proposition, what sets you apart from other people in your space, right?
Yeah, I think that, you know, everything that you can do, I think one of the other big mistakes that I see a lot of young designers do is they stop learning. You know, so I am always studying. I am always learning. I still work under a grandmaster to this day. So I still have a feng shui grandmaster. And so she sends me a packet every month of about 100 new things with mantras and prayers. And, you know, like, I'm constantly, so any free time that I have, I am studying. And if I'm not studying feng shui, then I'm studying, maybe it's space clearing or dowsing, or I'm learning, you know, how to speak in nature, or I'm learning new mantras, or I'm going to a silent retreat, or I'm constantly learning, because that to me is a value add that I can continue to add to my clients. So like, we just had a client come back that we haven't worked with for 2 years. We did their whole downstairs of their house, and now they're ready to go upstairs. Well, we haven't seen her in about 18 months. And so she's come back, and like, I've added, you know, a couple new things to my services. I now have this new way of space clearing, and I now have this new way of dowsing that I didn't have when, you know, so it's a constant value add that you can offer these things. So don't get stuck in where you are and think, oh, I'm good. You know, I have everything that I need. Don't stop learning.
Yeah, you said learning. It also sounded to me like self-development. So by you developing yourself, by you developing yourself, yes, the skills you have, but also your unique perspective, that's you becoming even more of an asset.
Without a doubt. And, you know, I think often designers feel like they have to, you know, be learning in something that has, you know, something to do with interior design. And it doesn't have to be. You know, you could be learning something like landscaping, or, you know, I had one gal that I mentored a couple of years ago, and she learned how to do upholstery. Like, I would never want to learn how to do an upholstered couch, but she was so fascinated and wanted to learn that. And it ended up being a huge value add because she was able to see quality pieces versus non-quality pieces and how they would do stitching and stuff like that. I was like, that's an incredible value add. Like, you know, and that happened to be interior design. But I had another gal who absolutely loved cooking. And so she started an aspect of her business where she would help people with nutrition. Like, she would help their clients, you know, get their kitchens right. It's a value add. So, you know, if you have something that you're passionate about, I had another designer who was so good at fashion and loved, like, not only organizing closets, but she loved helping women how to create capsule wardrobes. Yeah. And so she was an interior designer, but she would also, you know, that's a value add. A lot of women are completely intimidated by this idea of a capsule wardrobe. Where do you start? How do you do it? What's it look like? What do I wear? Like, you know, so she was able to bring that in for them and to help them do that. So what is it, something that you're passionate about that you can add to your business? And it could be another stream of income. You have to try to create as many as you possibly can so that you can make money.
Wow, this has been so amazing. I'm so grateful that you came on the show. I'm so grateful that we got a chance to talk a few weeks ago and get to know each other. This has been great. Thank you so much. Where can everyone find you if they wanted to look you up?
I'm all over the internet. My website is gatesinteriordesign.com. I'm on Twitter. I'm on Instagram. Twitter and Instagram both. I have two handles. I have at Gates Interior Design and then at the Amanda Gates. I'm on Pinterest. I'm on YouTube. I'm on Medium. I mean, all you do is Google Amanda Gates and I guarantee you I'm going to pop up.
Alrighty. Awesome. Awesome. Well, excellent lessons here in this lesson or in this episode. I hope that I'm going to say I hope that everyone was able to take something away, but I think that it would be impossible to not take something away. So again, Amanda, thank you so much for being on the show.
Absolutely. Thanks so much. I don't know if you're going to be doing a blog post or anything, but you can also put on there my link to my podcast. Steve, the owner of my PR firm, he is trying to promote it because it's teaching. Like, we're on podcast 8 or 9 now, and it's a bunch of stuff about feng shui and teaching people and that sort of thing. So if there is a designer out there or somebody who's interested in feng shui, there's a lot of really good information on it. And we're just trying to build that aspect of it.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll do.